Ishika?
Namaste and greetings. I, Ishika Chaudhary, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Talk. Today, we have gathered for a book discussion on the topic, The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha, by Jairam Ramesh. We welcome you, sir. This event is organized by IMPRI, Center for Human Dignity and Development. We look forward to learning from our distinguished gathering. Now I invite Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, to introduce the gathering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishika, and good evening to everyone from New Delhi, India. I am really delighted to welcome you all to this discussion of the fascinating book titled The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha, authored by Mr. Jairam Ramesh. So it is my honor to introduce to you the speaker, Mr. Jairam Ramesh. He is a member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, representing the state of Karnataka. Some years of his early schooling was from St. Xavier's School, Ranchi, and I am delighted to say that this is the city where I was born and raised too. IIT Bombay, Carnegie Mellon University, Massachusetts Institute of Technology are his alma mater too. Previously, Mr. Jairam Ramesh has held several ministerial portfolios during the UPA government, namely rural development, drinking water and sanitation, environment and forests, Union Minister of State Independent Charge for Commerce and Power. And besides this, in his capacity as an economist and policy expert, he has advised the Prime Minister and Finance Minister on several issues. He has also served in the Planning Commission of India, Ministry of Industry, and the Advisory Board on Energy in the Cabinet Secretariat. Some of his other books include A Checkered Brilliance, The Many Lives of V.K. Krishna Menon, Intertwined Lives, P.N. Huxar and Indira Gandhi, A Life in Nature, Making Sense of Chindia, Reflections on China and India, among others. Thank you, sir, for being with us this evening. It is an honor to be hosting you. The moderator of the program is Professor Amita Singh, who is currently president of NDRG, an Asia-Pacific Disaster Research Group. She is a political theorist and has extensively worked on Bertrand Russell's philosophy. Ma'am is a professor at the Ma'am was formerly at the Center for the Study of Law and Governance at JNU, where she has also been the founder chairperson of the Special Center for Disaster Research and also the member secretary of the Institutional Ethics Board at JNU. The Asia Pacific Governance Network, called NAPSIPAG, is being led by her for many years as its Secretary General. Professor Singh has worked closely with the Global Innovators Network at the Harvard Kennedy School, IT for Women Initiative at the Maryland University, Baltimore, and several universities in Australia and South Asia. Twice, she has been awarded the Australia-India Council and Australian Government Monash Fellowship. She has been a visiting professor at the American University at Washington, D.C., and then at Harvard. Ma'am has authored and edited several books and journal articles of national and international repute. She is the series editor of the Palgrave Macmillan Global South series on disaster management. And currently she is the lead editor for a global handbook on disaster studies by Springer Nature. Welcome, ma'am. Our eminent discussants for today are Professor Tansen Sen and Professor Wasantha Seneviratne, who are joining from Shanghai and Sri Lanka, respectively. I'll take a moment to introduce our discussants. Professor Tansen Sen is a professor of history, the director of the Center for Global Asia at New York University, Shanghai, and Global Network professor at New York University. Some of his books include Buddhism, Diplomacy and Trade, The Realignment of Sino-Indian Relations, India, China, and the World, A Connected History, Traditional China in Asian and World History, Buddhism Across Asia, Networks of Material, Cultural, and Intellectual Exchange, among others. And currently he is working on a book on Zheng He's maritime expeditions in the early 15th century, a monograph on Jawaharlal Nehru and China, and co-editing the first volume of the Cambridge History of the Indian Ocean. Welcome, sir. Professor Seneviratne is the head of department and professor in the public and international law at University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. Ma'am is the director of the Center for the Study of Human Rights, a research institute affiliated to University of Colombo. And she has authored, edited, and published numerous book chapters, research articles in national and international journals. Ma'am is the editor-in-chief of the Sri Lanka Journal of International Law. She is a member of the Expert Committee on Making a New Constitution, team leader, member of the National Monitoring Committee on Child Rights, and a member of the Law Reforms Committee of the National Child Protection Authority, and a member of the former National Steering Committee on Police Reforms. So welcome, ma'am. And we also have Professor Kancha Elaya Shefford, former director, Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, who would also be sharing his thoughts later in the program. So thank you so much for joining us, and I welcome all of you. I now hand over the proceedings to the moderator of our program, Professor Amita Singh. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Simi, and thank you, Arjun, for giving me this opportunity to come and speak here on a very fascinating book and a biography that has got so much of attention all around. But before I start on that, I have first to congratulate Mr. Ramesh, for having written a book that spreads the whole canvas of colonial and caste segregated society from where emerges, the light of Asia. And the title of the book, The Poem That Defined the Buddha, that speaks volumes on what would be contained, and people would automatically, with deep thinking people are automatically going to get attracted to seeing what's inside. And I was one of the first ones to buy this book because the title was so enticing. Sometimes, it appeared that Mr. Ramesh was narrating the evolution of academic institutions. The first few chapters were on Pune and then Bombay, and how some of these key institutions came up. And then the monopoly of caste over the right of others to learn. Then a very interesting anecdote that, the public schools allowed women to come, but the government schools, did not. And so there were 2, 3, 4 girls in the whole of Pune city who could have access to school education. Something, that this documentation would never be available to anyone. And I really congratulate Mr. Ramesh that he has really dug into the libraries and the data corners of Oxford to get all this out for all of us. Thanks a lot for bringing this out. And at other times, I see that he's also brought in something that people are very hesitant about bringing. Well, there are many important issues which have been mentioned here, but the British academia who visited India and then interacted with people and the philosophies that emerged from here, and then forever they were Indians at heart. And so much so that even though, like Edwin's book was 1897. Now, if Mr. Ramesh goes back to 1897, that is a complete different picture of this country. But he's been able to relate it very well. And the issues that have been brought out are the issues that concern us even today. And that is what is intriguing about the book. Now, my first question comes out of this, that I'm curious to know if you found the need for bringing that history out today. Was there any need or a provocation? What was the inspiration behind, working so hard? It wasn't easy. I can see that it's not easy to bring out a biography of this sort. There's nothing left in Oxford during those times which has not been beautifully picturized in this. So this is my first question about, what is the inspiration behind the book?
Well, the inspiration, Amita, first of all, a small correction. It was 1879, not 1897.
Yeah.
So, the history goes back even further.
Sure.
Well, the inspiration was really a fascination with the life of the Buddha. Like every Indian, every Buddha is hardwired into us. We may not be Buddhists in the religious sense of the term. We may not be scholars of Buddhism. We may not be engaged in theoretical discussions on Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana, Hinayana, and all the various yanas of Buddhism. But I think in every Indian, in the heart of every Indian, in the mind of every Indian, lies the Buddha. I mean, it's so much part of our DNA, part of our consciousness. And I had read this poem when I was a very small boy. It remained with me. And over the years, I began to become even more aware of its profound literary and social, cultural, and political impacts, not only in England, where it was first published in July of 1879, but also in America, in Europe, and ultimately in Asia and in the subcontinent. So it was, I would say that it was a milestone in the early historiography of Buddhism. Remember, Buddha was being rediscovered in the 19th century. James Prinsep, with his epigraphical breakthroughs, Alexander Cunningham, with his archaeological breakthroughs, and a series of scholars like Rhys Davids, Max Muller, and others, in Fausbol in Denmark, and a couple of others in France and Germany. So this was a period when Buddha was being rediscovered, and the poem gets published in the midst of this discovery, and it becomes a milestone in popularizing. It's not a milestone in scholarship. It's not a milestone in Buddhism per se, but it becomes a milestone in popularizing the personality, the life, the teachings of the Buddha. And therefore, I wanted to understand what made, to use today's language, what made this poem go viral?
Yeah.
Why did it go viral?
Yeah.
It was not the age of social media, but yet it went viral. It went viral in English and 30 other languages, and it influenced so many different people across the globe. So that's certainly one interest. Secondly, of course, is the personality. You can't divorce the poet from the poem. And Edwin Arnold belonged to that generation of Britishers who believed in British rule in India, but were absolutely captivated by India's literary and cultural legacy. So he translates the Hitopadesha, he translates the Mahabharata, he translates the Gita Govinda, and then he translates the Bhagavad Gita as the song Celestial, which becomes an abiding text for Mahatma Gandhi. So I wanted to understand more about this poet, who wrote this historic poem. Thirdly, there's the Bodh Gaya dispute, the dispute over the Mahabodhi temple. And it's almost like the dispute on Ayodhya, which we have lived through in our times. And Edwin Arnold is important because he is the man who really launches the Buddhist agitation for control over the Mahabodhi temple, which is taken forward by the Sri Lankan monk activist Anagarika Dharmapala. And finally, in 1953, control is transferred from the Shaivite Mahants to a joint Hindu-Buddhist committee with the local district magistrate as the chairman. So I wanted to understand, the dynamics, the genesis of what happened at Bodh Gaya and the Mahabodhi temple. So these were, multiple inspirations I had to write this two-in-one biography, the biography of a poem in which is embedded the biography of the poet.
Well, you answered my second question also very nicely. So actually, the third question that comes out of, how you've brought out from Edwin's literature the distinction between the northern and the southern Buddhists. And, the Theravada Buddhism, as is claimed, of Sri Lanka is said to be more authentic than the one at India, China, Tibet, and Japan. So can you reflect on Edwin's thought that went behind this?
Well, Edwin was no scholar. He was not a Rhys Davids, or he was not a Max Muller. He was not a Herman Oldenburg. He was no scholar. So his sources are very eclectic. Writing this long 50,000 line poem, he used multiple sources. He used the Sanskrit works, which are no longer available, but are available in their Chinese translations, which have then been translated into French, which was used by Sir Edwin. Sir Edwin used a lot of Pali translations into English. So a lot of Pali sources he used. He used some other sources, but ultimately these sources came either from Chinese or from Pali. I don't think it's difficult to say whether he was in the Mahayana tradition or in the Theravada tradition, although he had a special relationship with Ceylon, with the then Ceylon. He goes to Ceylon in 1886, and it is in Ceylon that the idea is given to him that the control of the Mahabodhi temple should lie with the Buddhist community. And it is through the Sri Lankan Dharmapala, that the agitation starts. But then, he marries a Japanese, and he is very fond of Japan. The last 25 years of his life is spent popularizing Japanese culture. But I wouldn't say that, he was a Theravada, or he was a Mahayana, or a Vajrayana. I don't think that. He looked upon, he was not interested in Buddhism per se. He was interested in Buddha. He was interested in the life of the Buddha. He was interested in why the Buddha did what he did, and the essence of the Buddha's teachings. So I don't think you can box Edwin Arnold, in terms of theology or in terms of philosophy. And, he narrates through poetry, because poetry was the language of the 19th century, as prose is largely of the 20th century. So he narrates in blank verse in this epic poem, the life of the Buddha, focusing on the life of the Buddha. So, on the Buddhist doctrine, the question that you ask, I don't think Edwin Arnold really spent too much time on that,
Yeah. As you reach to the later chapters of your book, you are concentrating more on the unity of the universe. And yes, that's where you bring down, Madame Blavatsky's book and, some very interesting sections that you have brought over there. But, something philosophically that has been brought out from Madame Blavatsky's book is that, the statement that, because her book created quite a stir, and the statement goes like that pre-Vedic Brahmanism and Buddhism are the double sources from which all religions of the world emerge.
Absolutely. The Theosophical Society is almost forgotten today, but the Theosophical Society is a very important institution in the Indian context. It's founded in New York by Madame Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott, but it moves its headquarters to Adyar in then Madras and today's Chennai in the late 1870s. And the Theosophical Society, as you know, is an ecumenical society based on the universality of all religions. And the Theosophical Society plays a very crucial role in the rediscovery of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. It plays a very crucial role in the rediscovery of Hinduism in India, and through when Annie Besant particularly was its president. But it plays a very important role in keeping the light of Asia alive through various translations in different European languages. And even today, on the 8th of May every year, which is called White Lotus Day in the Theosophical community, the verses from the Light of Asia are recited every year on the 8th of May, which happens to be the death anniversary of Madame Blavatsky. So the Theosophical Society is very central. And it's not a coincidence, because I think Arnold too believed in the universality of religions. He translates an Arabic work, the 99 Names of Allah. He translates Persian works into English. He writes a book on Turkish grammar. He's not embedded in Christianity in any way. In fact, I've recounted in great detail that when he was principal of the Pune College between 1857 and 1860, which subsequently becomes the Deccan College, he was very, very hostile towards missionary activity. He did not approve of the Scottish Presbyterians and other missionary organizations which were then active in and around Pune in other parts of Western India. So he was ecumenical, he was agnostic, a deep suspicion of organized dogma, organized church, and hence his fascination, in my view, with the life of the Buddha. He doesn't see, in the poem, he doesn't focus, the divinity of Buddha is irrelevant for him. It's the humanity of Buddha that he focuses on. And I think that's what really gave this poem the extraordinary appeal it had and continues to have. In one word, I would say it is the humanity of Buddha and not the divinity of Buddha.
Sure.
He doesn't focus on the divinity at all.
Absolutely. And, as you move further, you've actually brought out the essence of Edwin's book completely, fascinated to reach this last part of it, where you've given a lot of focus to the rise of vegetarianism, universalism of all species, and, the very eloquent admonitions against animal sacrifice. This part, generally what happens is that scholars of high repute, they take a detour when they have to talk about, this kind of a complicated questions in life. I'm sure that goes because, you've been Minister of Environment and Forest. And I still remember that from JNU once, when we called you up in panic, the whole of the Sultanpur lake was dried up and animals were dying around. And within 3 hours, you got the lake filled up. So, we can never forget. So I was linking up that reaction into this. You've mentioned Song Celestial, how that became an important reading in Hinduism, and how Gandhi wanted to offer that to Rabindranath Tagore to read because there was some conflict between them. This is beautifully brought out, and I think that's how you resonate with Edwin's thoughts.
Well, Gandhi and Edwin Arnold were fellow members of the London Vegetarian Society, which was founded in 1889. And Gandhi was actually the secretary of the London Vegetarian Society, and Edwin Arnold was its vice president. And it is then that Gandhi gets introduced to Hinduism via the Bhagavad Gita, and he gets introduced to Buddhism via the Light of Asia. And it is in the Theosophical Society in London. While the Light of Asia remains an impactful book on the life of Gandhi, Gandhi's entire life is inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. He writes about, he has translated the Bhagavad Gita into Gujarati as well. But the abiding text for Gandhi till the day he died remained Edwin Arnold's Song Celestial. And he's recommending this book to his family, to his children, to his colleagues. He's writing to Nehru, read this verse from the song Celestial, and this, for Gandhi, and that's one of the reasons what makes Edwin Arnold so very important in Indian political history, that he has this extraordinary influence on Gandhi, through his song Celestial. He also, of course, the other reason why Edwin Arnold is important, and Kanchayalaya Shepherd would have something, I'm sure, to say on this, is the impact that he has on Dharmanand Kosambi, the greatest Pali scholar of the 20th century. And Dharmanand Kosambi gets inspired, into Buddhism, to follow the path of the Buddha by reading the Marathi translation of The Light of Asia, which comes out in 1894. And Dharmanand Kosambi is one of the people who influences Ambedkar as well. And if you read the Buddha and his Dhamma, which was published in 1957, a few months after Ambedkar's demise, you will see some similarity between what Dharmanand Kosambi had written a couple of years ago and what Ambedkar writes in terms of the life of the Buddha. So yeah, I mean, there are these multiple strands in so far as the Light of Asia is concerned. See, the English, Amita, the English version of the poem has a literary impact, has a cultural impact, but its translations have a social impact. Its translations into Malayalam, its translations into Marathi, its translations into Tamil, its translations into Bengali, its translations into Punjabi. This becomes the text. The life of the Buddha becomes the inspiration for the anti-caste movement of Sri Narayana Guru, of Yoti Thas, of Lakshmi Narasu, and ultimately of Dr. Ambedkar himself. So while the English version of the poem has a literary impact, on Vivekananda, on Tagore, on Gandhi, on Nehru, and a cultural impact and a philosophical impact, its political impact, its social impact comes not so much from the English poem, but comes from its translations into different Indian languages.
So I would end up with, where I found the unity of the biographer's mind with Edwin's mind. And, I just took out these 3-4 lines from your book. Teaching how fair this earth were if all living beings were linked, bloodless and pure, the golden grain, bright fruits. Seeing that knowledge grows, life is one, and mercy cometh to the merciful. That's where I sum up your beautiful book and the lovely thought process that goes while reading your book. And I hope you will do more biographies like these for people like us who just read our disciplinary contours. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amita. Thank you.
With that, would you like to go to our next discussant, Amita ma'am?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So should I be the next? Am I the next, right?
Yeah, Prof Tansen.
Yeah. Thank you so much to IMRI for organizing this. Jairam and I have spoken about the book previously, but I wanted to emphasize 3 things and then ask maybe 3 or 4 questions that are related to me summarizing the book. I look at the book from a perspective of connections and networks that the poet Arnold created when living and after his passing. Same with the poem itself when it was published and long afterwards. Here I want to come back to something that Jairam just mentioned about the social impact of the translations. And finally, Jairam himself, because I think The book shows important aspects of doing research in this topic that very few people have actually worked on. So these are the three kinds of connections, networks that I'm going to just emphasize that stood out for me reading the book. The first is, of course, Arnold himself, and from his time in Oxford, coming to Pune, and then traveling back to London, going to US, and then to Japan, he creates various kinds of connections and networks which are quite fascinating. And sometimes it's individual to individual connections that happen. Sometimes the connections are through letters. And this is, I think, one very important aspect of the book, where Jairam brings in some of the letters written to Arnold by people like Chulalongkorn, and then the connections they had through the letters, but with the Theosophical Society as well. And then so these connections continue after Arnold passes away. And so as Jairam points out, the Mahabodhi temple issue was actually not resolved until much later, but Arnold plays an important role in instigating the revival of Mahabodhi Society and Mahabodhi Temple as such. So I think one way of looking at the main contribution of Jairam's book is to look at the networks and connection Arnold had and understand the long-term impact of his undertaking. So I think that's an important part of the book. The second is, of course, the poem itself. As Jairam pointed out, it came during a time when a number of other things about the Buddha and Buddhism were being written in Western languages, in French, in German, in English. And then so within that context, the poem still stood out, and it became very popular very quickly. And it had its own networks and connections. Mahatma Gandhi is one, Tagore, and others who read this poem were quite influenced, as Jairam pointed out, Ambedkar in particular. So the poem itself had its own connections with or without Arnold. And I think that's the second part of the book, where Jairam is focusing on the poem and its translations and performance as well. So I think that, again, is an important takeaway for me that comes out of Jairam's The Light of Asia. The third aspect is, of course, the research that went into writing this book. And as a historian doing similar research in archives, that was, I think, quite outstanding. And that's where I wanted to start with my question to Jairam. Given the kinds of archival research that you did and various kinds of leads that you pursued, what was the most difficult aspect of doing research on this topic, Arnold or the poem itself?
Well, Tansen, actually, I'm finding research very, very easy. I didn't start out of my study from where I'm speaking right now when I was researching and writing this book. Between March 2020 and December 2020. Access is so easy, Tansen, today. You can have access to the British archives, the US archives, the French archives. In fact, the access is the most difficult in the Indian archives. So one has to go physically. But luckily, some of the material in the Indian archives were digitized. So I was able to get, so it was all digital access. I was able to get digital access, but it involved a lot of, a lot of preparatory work to find out where the material is. I mean, for example, I found a lot of Arnold's papers at the University of Texas in Austin. And of course, I also found them in Oxford and in the British archives. But a large number of these papers are available strewn across the world. So I was helped by the fact that I needed access only in English material, right? I mean, Arnold didn't write letters in any other language other than in English. So all the primary material that I have accessed is the English material. And where there was non-English material, for example, Dharmanand Kosambi is largely in Marathi. But then luckily, Dharmanand Kosambi's granddaughter had translated, most of that into English, and that is available. So I did not, I didn't find it difficult, Tansen. I found it actually, it may be counterintuitive, but I was able to get access to Japanese archives. I got access to the Royal Archives in Thailand, archives in Sri Lanka, archives in Myanmar. It's only the Chinese archives, of course. I was not able to penetrate, and you tried to help me, because in 2015, as late as 2015, I discovered a Chinese translation of The Light of Asia. It was very interesting. There were Japanese translations in the 19th century. There have been Korean translations earlier. There's been Khmer translations. There have been Thai translations. But the Chinese translation comes as late as 2015. So this poem is still sort of circulating, for those interested in the life of the Buddha. So the research is, I didn't find it very difficult, Tansen.
No, that's a good thing, Jairam. I think this is a lesson to students who complain that they can't find material. You did it. I mean, you're absolutely right. Many of these things are digitized. And if it's searchable, you can find things. So I think research-wise, I think students should learn from the book about how you have found all this material and narrated the story of not only Arnold, but the poem itself. So I think
Indian students are notoriously lazy. When I go to National Archives, for example, I find more foreign students sitting there than Indian students, And this tradition of archival research is not very deeply embedded, I'm afraid, Tansen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I've been spending time in the archives, and those who do China, I say, lots of material on China are in the Indian archives. You just have to go to archives and find many things. But coming back to the poem itself, Jairam, in your response just now, you said the translations had more of a social impact than the English original in India. So my question is why? Is it because, one of the things that made me realize from your answer was that, maybe there was no biography of the Buddha in these languages. And perhaps for the first time, people were reading the biography of the Buddha in their own languages, right? And perhaps that may be the reason why they are encountering this kind of a thing. So you have Sanskrit, you have English, you have French, you have German, but did you look into Marathi versions of Life of Buddha before this translation, or in Bengali, right? I mean, so maybe there was a lack of such biographies, which didn't happen in English because we had French and English coming out.
No, you're absolutely
is that the reason?
You're absolutely right, Tansen. Bengali comes out in 1885, Marathi comes out in 1894, Telugu comes out in 1902, Malayalam comes out in 1914, Tamil 1918, Hindi 1922, and then Gujarati in the 1930s, Punjabi in the late 1930s, and then of course there are multiple Bengali, multiple Tamil, multiple Malayalam translations. So one of the reasons is, of course, that the translations are more widely read than the English poem. The English poem was probably read largely by Bengali Brahmins and Tamil Brahmins, who were the first to take to English, who are proficient in English. But once they get translated, of course, they reach a wider spectrum of society, but of course, only the literate sections of society, but certainly larger than the English speaking section. The other thing is, Tansen, the language version, becomes an instrument in the hands of social reformers. I mean, take Narayana Guru, for example, one of the greatest social reformers of the 20th century. He starts the SNDP movement. And the man who translates the Light of Asia into Malayalam is the General Secretary, a great Malayalam poet called Kumaranasan. And he translates it. And the Buddha becomes the instrument, the instrument of challenging the Brahminical system, the Brahminical order. And this poem is the earliest poem which gives a description of the life of the Buddha. And we are now talking of the late 19th, early 20th century. There were not many books on Buddha, life of the Buddha available, other than the academic works. So whether it is in Malayalam, whether it is in Tamil, whether it's in Hindi, whether it's in Marathi, the social reformers of the day, the anti-caste movements of the day needed an icon, needed a symbol, to peg their campaigns around, and Buddha became that symbol. To Vivekananda, to Tagore, to Gandhi, to Nehru, Buddha was a cultural symbol. He was a symbol of Indian philosophy, Indian spirituality, Indian philosophy. But to Narayana Guru, to Eothithas, to Dharmanand Kosambi, to Ambedkar, Buddha was a political symbol. Buddha was a symbol of political revolt against Brahminical orthodoxy. So that's why I think the translations, very often, Tansen, the translations have a deeper meaning than the original text. Why would people want to translate, a 50,000 line poem, which had been published in England in 1879? And I think there was a political agenda in these translations. And the political agenda was challenge the Brahminical system, challenge the Brahminical orthodoxy, like Buddha did 2,000 years ago. So I think it's very important to see the translations very often are based on a larger agenda than the original.
Clearly. And the other thing you mentioned, the literate reading it, but you also point out it was performed in drama, for example, right? So the performance itself must have attracted people into this political.
It was hugely popular. It was Girish Chandra Ghosh, the father of modern Bengali theatre, and you know about this much more than me, who translated the poem, adapted it for stage as Buddha Charita. And it was seen by no less a man than Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa himself at Star Theatre, in 1885, when it was performed in Calcutta, and it became one of the favorites for Vivekananda as well. Right. So yes, it gets, it influences Abhinandranath Tagore in his paintings. It becomes the basis for the Indo-German film of 1925 called Light of Asia in English, Prem Sannyas in Hindi, and Der Jucht ASEAN in German. So the impact, that's why I call this impact not just a literary impact, but it's a cultural impact. Right. And I think it has a huge cultural impact in India and in other parts of the world.
No, that's true. I think that translations and the performance had a very different kind of an impact in India compared to, as you point out, English or foreign language translations elsewhere.
I just want to say one thing, to the rest of the world, and in fact, to many people in India, Buddha represents contemplation, meditation, and so on and so forth. But there is a community, large community, for whom Buddha represents revolution, for whom Buddha represents social protest, for whom Buddha represents, the spirit of, the spirit of completely reordering society on the basis of equality and fraternity. So I think, both these Buddhas are important, but I think the contemplative, meditative Buddha gets far too much importance, and the political, social Buddha, gets far less importance. And I think it's Ambedkar who really saw that. And Ambedkar's life was anchored in the political and social Buddha, not the contemplative and meditative Buddha.
Right. So Jairam, one last question about the man himself. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of your book, maybe one of the two most controversial aspects of the book is calling him a soft imperialist, right? And so on one hand, you point out that he was defending the British rule in India, and then you call him the soft imperialist. I don't know if people have questioned you about that, but how do you define a soft imperialist? What makes somebody a soft imperialist?
I'll tell you, Robert Clive was a hard imperialist. Warren Hastings was a soft imperialist. I mean, there is a distinction. And I know this is controversial. I know Shashi Tharoor, has a different point of view. But I do believe that there was a generation of British administrators, British scholars, who, while they believed in the essentiality of British rule in India, were nevertheless captivated and fascinated by India's cultural and literary legacy. William Jones, James Prinsep, Alexander Cunningham, Max Muller, Edwin Arnold. These were Monia Williams, Rhys Davids. I think these people were, they didn't believe in independence for India. They had no sensitivity to India's aspirations for self-rule. They didn't even believe in self-rule for Ireland, let alone India. But at the same time, they spent all their lives studying Sanskrit, studying Marathi, in the case of Edwin Arnold, translating these works. I don't think they did this to justify British rule in India. I think they did this because they were genuinely in love with that aspect of India. That's why I call them a soft imperialist. They believed in British rule. They knew that British rule would end at some point of time. They were not agitators, for the ending of British rule. But at the same time, they went out of their way to rediscover India's ancient past and popularize it. So why would Charles Wilkins translate the Bhagavad Gita into English in 1784? Did he do it to justify British rule in India? Did Edwin Arnold write The Light of Asia to justify Queen Victoria's rule in India? No, I don't think so. So that's what I call a soft imperialist. It's a controversial thesis, I know.
Yeah, we might come back to that, but I'll let the other questioner to ask questions, maybe. Arjun?
We can go to Professor Wasantha. Ma'am?
Thank you very much, Professor Amita Singh, for giving this wonderful opportunity, and greetings from Sri Lanka. I'm really honored by having this invitation. Honorable Shri Jairam, I was very carefully listening to your very rich, enlightening thoughts, and so much inspired. The depth of your thoughts and the way that you link the character of Lord Buddha and the philosophy to the contemporary world. So let me begin with some perspectives on having some interfaces between Buddhism and Lord Buddha's character to human rights discourse currently happening, as well as from a gender perspective. Because I understand that I am from Sri Lanka, and in Sri Lanka, more than 75% of population are born Buddhists. But I don't think that all these Buddhists really understand the true spirit and letter of what Lord Buddha said. So that is the social struggle or the political impact that Lord Buddha wanted to have in the ancient Orthodox India. So, India and Sri Lanka, the cultures are not very much differ from each other. I think this Sir Arnold, the book, that is the title of the book, which is The Light of Asia. This shed a light to the Asia, because the Asia was so much engrossed with the caste, the creed, the gender discrimination, and so forth. So this light actually attempted to eliminate those injustices in the society, inhumanities in the society. I think that is a message that we should carry forward. I think that you are trying your the highest in doing that, being a politician and a social activist and an intellectual. I think this, your book, Light of Asia, definitely will do that. So I'm so grateful to that. So let me share some other anecdotes. When I was a school girl, in one of the girls' school named Ratnavali, so I came to know first about the book named Light of Asia, authored by Sir Edwin Arnold, because that the school was founded by Sir Henry Olcott. So like my school, many other schools, that we were feliciting Sir Henry Olcott, that Brahmachari, Anagarika Dharmapala, Madam Blavatsky. So then those messages came to our mind to understand how these foreigners, I mean, apart from Anagarika Dharmapala from Sri Lanka, the foreigners, Henry Olcott, Blavatsky, why that those were inspired by this poetic form of Lord Buddha, and what kind of a message it carried to them to come to Sri Lanka and to have a huge difference in terms of education, the way of life, looking at the systems, the modernization project, the revolution to happen, you know, in the colonial and post-colonial Sri Lanka. Now, I'm very happy and grateful that the India, I know that when I was yesterday speaking to Prof Amita Singh, that I was so happy to hear, because I know that what Lord Buddha preached, like the great four rivers, Ganga, Achiravati, Sarabu, Yamuna, that when all these rivers flow and join to the and amalgamated to the ocean, the same salty water. Likewise, that you might have Brahman, you know, and the other, you know, so-called high or low caste, using that how the people are ill-treated, discriminated. But the Lord Buddha's message says that the principle of non-discrimination as embedded in human rights. So Buddhism goes far beyond human rights. I cannot compare Buddhism with human rights word to word and in all respects, because always being a human rights activist, I find human rights is a regime, but Buddhism is a kingdom, you know, so it's an empire. So that we understand the gender discrimination, because I being a woman, I understand in the 21st century, but still women do not have the proper place for them. They are not treated as equal. So the equality, humanity, principle of non-discrimination, to treat each and every person with equal respect, human dignity. So this is the message. This revolution is Lord Buddha, more than being a spiritual leader, to make it a living religion. So I think this is very important. And as you said, that translating Light of Asia into local languages is very important to make people understand the true message, the life story. A prince coming from a palace who could be an emperor, but who wanted to be an ascetic and who renounced all the worldly comforts, and who came back with a great message that all people, that you can divide as bhikkhu bhikkhudi or upasik upasika, not that so-called the caste or the creed. All people are alike. All living beings should be treated equally. That is how Buddhism goes far beyond human rights, because human rights talks about human existence and human dignity. But Buddhism talks more than that, about many relationships, how the spouses should treat to each other, how employee and employee should treat to each other, you know, so how a teacher, the pupil relationship, how that they should treat each other, and the peers, the friends to friends. So these are some of the great messages that actually those hit the very foundational discriminatory roots to be uprooted. And I think Lord Buddha's light was shed as by Arnold And now it's Honorable Shri Jairam. We are very grateful to you for enlightening through the message of Light of Asia and Lord Buddha's character and enlightenment and the doctrine. Thank you. So I think, Shri Jairam, I think you have great understanding of all how Sri Lanka and many jurisdictions, how that they have been inspired, motivated, and inculcated with the values. And I think this message will go beyond the borders. This transboundary impact of Buddha's message and your great effort is really acknowledged and inspired. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Seneviratne. Actually, Sri Lanka is plays a very important role in the revival of India's Buddhist heritage. And without Dharmapala, in the early part of the 20th century, the Mahabodhi temple would not have assumed the importance it assumed. And neither would Sarnath would have been restored the way it got restored. So Sri Lanka plays a very important role. And of course, the discovery of Pali sources in Sri Lanka, very important source material for not only Edwin Arnold's poem, but for scholars like Dharmanand Kosambi and Dr. Ambedkar himself. So, but the one point you make, which I do want to stress, we use the word nowadays, as I said, we use the word viral. And one of the reasons why the Light of Asia went viral in the late 19th century across the world is because it focused on the humanity of Buddha. It didn't focus on the divinity of Buddha. And India is a divinity surplus, humanity deficit country. And one of the things that I wanted to do through this book is to this message that let's give up our obsession with divinity and let's discover the roots of humanity. And the roots of humanity are to be sought in the life of the Buddha. You see, I see Buddha not as a figure, as I said, of contemplation, meditation, renunciation, all that is fine. But I see Buddha more as a figure of humanity who preaches the message of equality, who preaches the message of fraternity. And I think that's really what we require in today's context.
Thank you, Shri Jairam. I think that is a true message Lord Buddha wanted. I mean, the spirituality, afterbirth, Nibbana, those are something beyond our, the living horizons. But we want to see that each and every person is treated equally, as well as with humanity, and to respect their human dignity. So to treat each other like one you treat that yourself, that you have to treat the other person as the same. So that is the greatest message that Lord Buddha wanted to spread. And I think that you very correctly pointed out that. Thank you.
Well, I think, the greatest contribution of Buddha was to tell us, forget thinking about afterlife, but, think about ethics in today's life. How do you lead an ethical life today? And I think Dr. Ambedkar had the best description of Buddha. He writes, Buddha was not a mokshadata. Buddha was a margadata. He did not tell us moksha, but he showed us the marga. So I think that's really the message that we need to carry out.
Thank you, Professor Wasantha. And sir, Professor Kanchalaya sir is also with us. Sir, would you like to pose some of the questions? Then we can go to Professor Tansen Sen again. Sir had some points left. Kanchalaya sir.
Thank you very much. Ramesh, I was reading your introduction in the reproduction of one of the websites, and then few chapters and 2-3 reviews. Now then I was thinking about the times in which you wrote this book and how does it work in a context of BJP ruling, and Narendra Modi trying to use Buddha in international platforms more, not in India. RSS does not use him at all. And in your influences, except one name that you mentioned, Arnold's poem influenced Vivekananda, who in turn is used by RSS more. Then, of course, some Congress people like you and, of course, Shashi Tharoor uses him more, as if he was his own, but RSS owns him more. So there is no other Hindutva thinker and writer, right from Savarkar, who was influenced by this poem. It appears, even you didn't mention any one of them in this. The others were liberals and so on. But you know, when I was doing my PhD on Gautam Buddha's political thought, way back in the 80s, in a very backward university like Osmania, I came across this poem, and I also read Ashwagosha's Buddha Charita. And both of them are very similar. Edwin Arnold replicated the story that of Buddha's life as depicted. But I didn't use them at all in the source of his thought, Buddha's thought, because I use Rice Davids more, Mrs. Rice Davids, Rock Hill, and many other sources to write my thesis. And later on it came as a book, God as Political Philosophy, Buddha's Challenge to Brahmanism. My feeling is, how does it work now, your book? Because Gandhi is also being used by them now in a very, very big way. Those who were condemning Gandhi, those who had anti-Gandhian philosophy are being used. Now, if you carefully read Arnold's poem again, the first part of description of the poem, and if you read Rama's life and the description, that the palaces, the aura of princely life that he was born in, the kind of even the chariot that he was using, all this, even in Arnold, comes from totally Sanskrit roots. And he could be easily mapped up on Hindu Rama, as Arnold describes him. Now, if that is the danger now, because Arnold, except, if you carefully compare Ashwagosha and Arnold, except one place, even in the story, production does not figure, tilling of the soil does not figure, his interaction with cattle tillers does not figure. Whereas in Arnold's poem, he talks about when Channa took him out in the last night, that the carpenters, how they were doing, smiths, what they were doing, and then beggars, how they were. There are some occupations, artisanal occupations mentioned in this poem. Ashwagosha does not even talk about it. So in Hindu literature, Shudras do not exist, production does not exist. In Arnold poem, Buddha is not a tribal prince, but Buddha is a fully Kshatriya prince like Rama. Now you are trying to introduce him. No, good that you said good that Narendra Modi gave you this time. If he uses the same book to give you more time, what do you do?
Well, Kanchayala Garu, you've raised a very interesting question. What was the reaction to this poem, either in English or the translations, amongst the Hindutva icon community? It's a very interesting question that you have raised. Now, the poem had a huge impact on Swami Vivekananda. Vivekananda, of course, is the biggest icon who has been usurped and appropriated by the Hindutva, lobby. And the Light of Asia was Vivekananda uses it time and time again. But for Vivekananda, Buddhism was a form of Advaita, and he describes the poem as a tribute to Advaitic, Hinduism. I have not been able to find any references in Savarkar's works, but knowing Savarkar and having read Savarkar, Savarkar, was not believed that Buddha made India weak. He belonged to that school which believed, in fact, as you know, Savarkar and RSS never got along because Savarkar wanted Indians to eat meat, and he thought that RSS will make Indians into an effeminate society. And for Savarkar, Buddha was a man, was somebody who weakened India by his philosophy, not strengthened India. That's his view. However, it's an interesting question you have raised, and I'll have to do a little more work on this. But I can tell you, the poem had a profound influence on Vivekananda. And when Vivekananda has many of his writings, in fact, we take great pride in Vivekananda's performance on the 11th of September 1893 at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. And that's become a landmark in modern Hindu thought and Hindu philosophy. But the other superstar that day in Chicago was Angarika Dharmapala, who was representing one of the representatives of Buddhism. But in India, we don't remember that. In India, we remember only Vivekananda.
No, you are right. You are right. Just one small interaction is that Vivekananda has been influenced by Arnold's poem, Buddhism, and he also talked about the Shudra's right to priesthood.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yes.
But in your introduction, you said that it was Churchill who wrote a letter to Nehru, indirectly hinting that Nehru was the living light of Asia.
Yes.
The last line,
Yes, yes.
And when the present BJP government is putting a statue of Vivekananda in Jawaharlal Nehru University, is to displace that Jawaharlal Nehru, not your Vivekananda. There are several Vivekanandas. There is Savarkar Vivekananda, there is Mohan Bhagavat's Vivekananda, there is now Ram Madhav's Vivekananda, and there may be one Vivekananda of Modi. I have never heard about Amit Shah's Vivekananda. He doesn't refer to philosophy, he refers to political opponents only. And there is Shashi Tharoor's Vivekananda. And there seems to be Jairam Ramesh Vivekananda. But all of them are against Nehru.
There is Nehru's Vivekananda also. So it's not, I don't think it's right to pit Nehru versus Vivekananda. Nehru is, if you read Nehru's Discovery of India, and if you read Nehru's letters and his selected works, great admirer of Vivekananda. He was an admirer of Vivekananda, the activist, admirer of Vivekananda, social reformer, He was admirer of Vivekananda as a man who, the great exponent of Advaita philosophy. So it's not, I beg to disagree respectfully with you. I don't think that, you can say that Nehru was anti-Vivekananda or he was.
No, he was not. He was not. But
he was not.
the
I mean,
so
BJP
I for one, like that, right? BJP is using.
I wouldn't lose sleep if there is a statue of Vivekananda in Jawaharlal Nehru University. Frankly, we have bigger things to worry about than a statue of Vivekananda. So, but it's the selective interpretation. Now, for example, the RSS is trying to appropriate Ambedkar, but they forget that when Ambedkar became a Buddhist on the 14th of October 1956 in Nagpur, there were 22 pledges that he gave to his followers before he embraced Buddhism. And one of the pledge was to reject Lord Rama. The second pledge was to reject Vishnu and to reject Indian gods. Now, RSS has forgotten that. Mr. Modi has forgotten that. And he keeps, trying to appropriate Dr. Ambedkar. But what about the 22 pledges that Dr. Ambedkar took along with 300,000 followers when he became a Buddhist? You know this better than all of us.
Yeah.
Who know these 22 pledges?
No, that's right. I think, but however, I think it's a very important book. And the kind of poetic influence in the English world introducing West. After I was asked to speak, I looked at his Arnold's bio sketch, his book, The Light of World.
Yes.
Jesus was not very popular.
No, it fell flat. He wrote Light of the World, which was on the life of Christ, but there was no market for it. But there was a market. But there was
because there were better works on Jesus and the way Jesus was. But I think Arnold was more of Sanskritized scholar.
No market, but there was a market for the life of the Buddha.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All the best for your book.
Thank you, Kanchaya Garu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kancha. Tansen sir, would you like to finish your points?
No, I think there's a question from the audience, so maybe we can ask them to, somebody has raised a hand if you want to ask them.
Sir, I will try to bring them in. Meanwhile, if you can proceed with your points.
Yeah, so staying on the political issue, Jairam, the one thing you mentioned up front is linking Ayodhya to the Mahabodhi temple issue, right? So there is a larger conflict going on with the Mahabodhi temple and Ayodhya, as you mentioned. Why is that important for you to understand Arnold, his life, his contribution, or the poem? Is there any relevance between?
Yes, it was the process of negotiations, Tansen. It took 70 years to negotiate, and it was a negotiated settlement between the Mahabodhi Society and the Indian National Congress first, and subsequently the government of Bihar and the government of India. The reason why I wanted to highlight the Mahabodhi issue is my belief, which I'm sure you share with me, that sacred places in India cross religious boundaries. No one religion can claim primacy or centrality. For example, the Hindus have claimed centrality in Ayodhya, but before the Hindus, there were the Buddhists. There is an equal Buddhist claim in Ayodhya, which nobody has talked about. So, religious places in India have multiple, stakeholders. So Mahabodhi temple, Hindus were praying. It was the Mahabodhi temple, the Vajrasana, it had a history going back to the time of Ashoka. It was the site of Buddha's enlightenment. And it's an issue that Arnold highlights for the first time after he goes to Colombo in February of 1886, and he has this meeting with various Sri Lankan monks, and it's the Sri Lankan monks who raise the issue, Tansen. It's the Sri Lankan monks who say that the Mahabodhi temple is central to Buddhism because it's the place of enlightenment, but the Buddhists have no control over it. It's controlled by the Shaivite priests. So Arnold takes it up. And then Dharmapala, of course, becomes the greatest champion. And finally, the issue gets resolved. So I am, I wanted to use the Mahabodhi temple in the context of the Ayodhya dispute to highlight how the dispute arose, but also importantly, how the dispute finally gets resolved, by May of 1953. Incidentally, the solution that we came up with, it's a typical Indian 50-50 solution. What happened in 53 was that the control over the Mahabodhi temple went from the Shaivite Mahant to a committee, a management committee, 50% of whom are Hindus, 50% of whom are Buddhists, and the local district magistrate is the chairman. And that is the structure which exists even today, even though the Bodh Gaya is a UNESCO heritage site. But there are many Ambedkar Buddhist organizations who are unhappy with this solution, who say that if Hindus can have control over Ram Janmabhoomi 100%, why can't Buddhists have control 100% over the Mahabodhi temple? And this is a question that they have raised. They've raised it a few years ago. In fact, after the Babri Masjid demolition, many activists, Ambedkarite Buddhist activists in Bodh Gaya said that, just like there is a Babri Masjid issue, there is a Mahabodhi issue, which had been settled in 1953. But subsequently, of course, that agitation has died out. But it's very much part of Indian political history.
But were you trying to make an implication that the Ayodhya issue could be resolved the way the Bodh Gaya issue?
When I wrote the book, the Ayodhya issue had been already resolved, quote unquote, through the Supreme Court judgment. Right. Yes, it could have been resolved through negotiations. It could have been resolved. Gandhi was involved, Nehru was involved, Rajendra Prasad was involved, the local Bihar Congress people were involved, and of course, Dharmapala was involved till his death in 1933. But yeah, no, I was not saying so much that Ayodhya could have been resolved this way, as much as to highlight how the Mahabodhi temple dispute arose, because it was the dispute over a religious site for almost 50 years of the 20th century. Let me, you understand Hindi, Tansen, don't you? Yes. So let me recount to you a conversation I had. As soon as this book came out, a few days later, a very senior politician belonging to the BJP, in fact, belonging to the RSS wing of the BJP, called me and he said, Jairam ji, मैं आपको बधाई देना चाहता हूँ. So I said, क्यों? So he said, नहीं, आपने एक ऐसा अजीब किताब लिखा है. तो I said, अजीब कैसे? तो देखिए, मैं बिहार का रहने वाला हूँ. मैं 40 साल से बोध गया जा रहा हूँ. हर साल मैं 3-4 बार बोध गया जाता हूँ, पर मुझे कोई जानकारी नहीं थी कि महाबोधि का ये इतिहास है. मुझे कोई जानकारी नहीं थी. मेरे नॉलेज में था ही नहीं कि धर्मपाला थे, एडविन आर्नल्ड थे, और ये महंत के बीच में इतना कंट्रोवर्सी चल गया, हाई कोर्ट तक गया और यहाँ एजिटेशन हुए. मैं 3-4 बारी जाता हूँ बोध गया और मुझे कुछ ऐसा महसूस नहीं हुआ कि ये एक ऐसा स्थान था जो 50-60 साल तक यहाँ ये आंदोलन चला. I'm just telling you. So, people don't understand what the background to the Mahabodhi temple issue is. It's a very important issue, Tansen.
Yeah.
Great. We also have Dr. Kokila Kona Singh, ma'am, who want to highlight a point. Ma'am, please go ahead. Kindly be brief.
Yes. Aibowan. Greetings from Sri Lanka. And it's an absolutely pleasure and honor to join with you today, unexpectedly, of course. But I was looking forward to participate this event, but not as a panelist, but I consider this as a great honor for me. So thank you, Amita ji and everyone else in the panel. I've been listening to the whole conversation, and I'm absolutely fascinated by the comments and the ideas flowed in. And I thought that with my humble knowledge and with my humble expression, I should also add something. And thank you very much, Sir Shri Jairam Ramesh. I actually agree with you by all means that your effort to enlighten the humanity part of Buddhism. The reason why I'm saying is when I go overseas and when people ask me what my religion is, when I say I'm a Buddhist, they think that it is a religion. But as a Buddhist, since my childhood, I have been taught to practice Buddhism. So it is a daily basis practice of life. And not that we do not believe on miracles. One day, if I may share one of my experience with you, in my LLM class, my master's in law class in Rotterdam, I met a friend from South America, and we had this chat over these religion and the cultural customs and all of these, the intercultural relations and all of that. And she's from Panama, as far as I can remember. And she asked me, what is my religion? So I said that I'm a Buddhist. So she had no idea what Buddhism is. She's from South America. So very little knowledge about this part of the world. So I had to explain. So her conclusion was, she told me that you are a Marxist. You believe in extreme equality. So no capitalism, no chance to have this capital principles. So you are a Marxist. I quite enjoy that. So I revisit my Buddhism, my religion as a Buddhist. And this, I'm very fascinated about your idea, sir, the divinity against humanity. Because this whole idea of Lord Buddha as Prince Siddhartha, he was a rebellion, in my opinion, going against the whole conventional patterns, traditionals, and beliefs. So as Buddhists, we do not believe in miracles. It's all about your conscious and what you do. So in Buddhism, we are not allowed to confess. We can't believe in confess. If you do, you have to deal with it. So things like that amaze me in my religion. And also this whole idea of this going against the caste system and all the traditional acceptance principles and practices. That is amazing. So this humanity part, and the Buddhism is a universal concept, philosophy. So anyone can be a Buddhist, regardless of what belief they have in their own God. And also with my South American friend, I said that I do not believe in God. I do not believe that miraculous power is there. So that's why she labeled me as a Marxist. So those are the things that I want to contribute. So thank you very much for getting me into the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, one of Dr. Ambedkar's most famous pieces was called Buddha or Marx. And he compares Buddha and Marx, and of course comes to the conclusion that Buddha is a greater, because of who he was. And you're absolutely right. It's not the reason why the Light of Asia became very popular is because Edwin Arnold popularizes the life of the Buddha, who did not require belief in God, who didn't require belief in heaven, who did not require belief in hell, who did not require belief in church, who did not require belief in a pope or a bishop or a vicar, you know. And that's the reason why in the late 19th century, there was hunger for a pre-Christ, Christ-like figure, you know, and who's known for human values and not for performing miracles. And that's one of the reasons why this book, the poem, became so very popular across the world.
Right, so we are way out of time. Time to wrap up now. I would ask Professor Amita Singh to conclude with her remarks, and then we also go to Jairam sir if you want to add anything. Amita ma'am, over to you.
This has been a wonderful experiment on discussing a book during these times. You know, there is so much happening outside, and Arjun, you should be congratulated for providing this platform of peace and platform of, you know, compassion and of great ideas that flowed in today. So thank you very much, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, for, of course, writing the book and discussing and bringing out some very, very important facts from Edwin Arnold's book. And we look forward to more biographies from you like this, you know, and again, a platform like this where we could all get together and discuss these higher ideals. And Professor Tansen, thank you very much for being here. And Professor Wasantha, you know, again, I think we need a larger and a bigger gathering to discuss many more ideas that have been left somewhere midway. So thank you, all of you. And Arjun.
Thank you, ma'am. Jairam.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Amita. Thank you, Tansen. Thank you, Professor Seneviratne. Thank you, Dr. Singh. And I'm delighted to have had this opportunity to have this discussion. I'm sure that we will continue discussing some of these themes. I must tell Professor Seneviratne and Dr. Singh, you know, I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not a scholar of Buddhism. I'm not a historian of Buddhism. But, you know, I've been profoundly influenced by the life of a Buddha. And many years ago,
you have reflected so well.
And
that is what is most inspiring.
I distinguish between Buddhism and Buddha. You know, I'm not so sure Buddhism is the answer to today's world, but I'm sure Buddha is the answer. Because, you know, I have deep suspicion of any ism. Because moment it becomes an ism, then it, you know, it gets into all sorts of complications. So, but I firmly believe that Buddhism may not be the answer, but Buddha is the answer.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir. So formally give up a vote of thanks. Anshula, why don't you give a formal vote of thanks? Thank you.
Yes, what a lively and wonderful discussion that was. And it's indeed my pleasure and my honor to be here and getting to learn from such a panel. And it's also a very humbling full circle moment from having heard Jairam sir speak when I was in school to now delivering this vote of thanks. So formally, on behalf of the IMPRI Center for Human Dignity and Development, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for this discussion on the book, The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha. We are grateful to you, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, for taking out the time to be with us and for so generously and interestingly sharing your insights with us. We congratulate you on your book, and it was really such a privilege and such a delight to have you here with us. Thank you, sir. We thank Professor Amita Singh for moderating the session, and Professor Tansen Sen and Professor Wasantha Seneviratne for joining us as discussants and adding their perspectives and raising such amazing questions that really shaped the discussion. Thank you. We are also grateful to Professor Kanchalaya Shepherd for being able to join us and for sharing his thoughts and comments. Lastly, of course, we thank our participants who are watching us here on Zoom or on Facebook Live or later on YouTube or listening to us on our podcast. On behalf of the entire IMPRI team, I invite you to tune into our future web policy talks as well. Thank you again, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.